just because it makes you feel uncomfortable doesn't mean it has to change. You know, I mean, Jesus was a white man too, but Jesus was a white man too, but
Throughout history, biblical characters have frequently been portrayed as Caucasian across a myriad of media platforms. From popular movies that we are familiar with,
His mighty hand, those who will.
God so loved the world that he sent his own Son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish, but have eternal life.
Tehevon le'erekum. Titsalon le'rada fekum.
animations, and cartoons.
Jesus! God bless you! Bless you, Jesus!
Statues, figurines, dolls, even comic books, children's Bibles, art, plays, and music, etc. Oh, how can we leave out the churches?
People, we are not having service. This morning, we're having church!
These depictions of white Bible figures are considered to be true and have been ingrained in our collective consciousness.
How can I bear to see calamity come on my people, my own kindred? Let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman the Agagite, in which he decreed to destroy the Jews in all the provinces.
However, a concerning trend emerges when we examine these representations closely. These images have permeated the subconscious mind of people. To think that lack of melanin, whiteness is equated to holiness. Since Jesus was white, then white must be superior. Whether Israelite or non-Israelite, we see biblical characters from Genesis throughout the Old Testament and throughout the New Testament consistently purported as European or Middle Eastern. By no means, this is a coincidence. These portrayals are deliberately used for the propagation of white supremacy and psychological enslavement. Tragically, this concept has been weaponized to justify and promote racism and colorism, not only in America, but also throughout the world. I have to mention this. Not in any way do I condone hate towards Caucasians or any group of people. Now you may be wondering, were the Israelites and Jesus white? How do we know what they really looked like? How can you make such a claim that the characters of the Bible were whitewashed? Well, let's look into the archives of history. In an ancient Egyptian tomb of the 12th dynasty official Khnumhotep II at Beni Hassan, a striking mural reveals a procession of Asiatic nomads labeled as Hyksos, hailing from Canaan as they journey towards Egypt. This depiction sheds light on the appearance of the semi-nomadic Hebrews recounted in Genesis. Below are the ancient Egyptians and above are the early Hebrews. These travelers stand out with their distinct clothing, as seen in the mural's detailed depiction and accompanying hieroglyphs. The men wear sandals and vibrant fringed kilts or long garments draped over one shoulder. They sport afros and knotted beards. The early Hebrews in this mural share a resemblance with the American funk and soul group the Commodores. In this same scene, the man depicted leading a group of Amu, dating back to around 1900 BCE, is often interpreted as Abisha, which is a Semitic name. The term Amu in the Egyptian language was used in ancient Egypt to designate Western Asiatic foreigners. The leader is shown wearing a colorful garment resembling Joseph's coat of many colors. This figure's skin tone and afro share a similar appearance to Apollo Creed, the heavyweight champ from the Rocky movies. In the tomb of 𝐻'Mere, dating to around 1500 BC, slaves are depicted making mud bricks. 𝐻'Mere served as the vizier of Thutmose III and mayor of Thebes during this time. This scene resonates with the biblical account in Exodus, where the enslaved Hebrews, who were still in bondage in Egypt at that time, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick. Exodus 1:14. The Hebrews were tasked with making bricks without straw. Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick, as heretofore, let them go and gather straw for themselves. Exodus 5:7. The Israelites also built store cities for Pharaoh, as recorded in Exodus 1:11, illustrating the labor-intensive tasks assigned to them during their captivity in Egypt. To provide context regarding how neighboring nations were portrayed, there is a relief of Ramesses II, found in Memphis. This relief depicts him capturing enemies, a Nubian, a Libyan, and an Asiatic, dating around 1250 BC and housed in the Cairo Museum. One notable detail is the depiction of their facial features, as well as the king grasping them by their locks. A tile portrays an Asiatic prisoner dating back to the 12th century BC. This artifact originates from the palace of King Ramesses III in Tel El Yehudia, Egypt. The captive is depicted wearing a bonnet resembling kufis or kippas, worn today by Muslims and Hebrew Israelites. This artifact is the head of an Asiatic individual discovered at Tel El Yehudia in Lower Egypt. It dates back to the New Kingdom period, specifically during the reign of Ramesses III, also known as Usermatre Mariamun, of the 20th dynasty, which is generally dated to approximately 1186-1070 BCE. This time frame corresponds to the latter part of the Bronze Age in ancient Egypt. Discovered in the same location, the artifact to the right is the head of an Asiatic Bedouin. It also dates back to the New Kingdom period of ancient Egypt. And to the left is the head of an Asiatic Bedouin, also discovered at Tel El Yehudia in Lower Egypt, dating from the reign of Ramesses III in the 20th dynasty. Both figures have beards, headbands, and braids or locks. As we can see, these pendants of Western Asiatics, the Amu, exhibit physical characteristics that resemble those of people of African descent. Here is a figurine of a Semitic slave from ancient Egypt during the time of the Exodus, housed at the 𝐻'Mere Museum in Haifa, Israel. It's evident that the Egyptians, the Nubians, and the early Hebrews were melanated. Early Hebrews exhibit skin tones that range from light, high yellow, or ruddy, to shades of brown and dark brown. Let's explore more depictions of ancient Egyptians. Queen T, circa 1398 BC, 1338 BC, was the great royal wife of Pharaoh Amenhotep III of Egypt. She was the mother of Pharaoh Akhenaten and the grandmother of Pharaoh Tutankhamun, also known as King Tut, all from the 18th dynasty of Egypt. As evident from historical depictions, Egyptians had African features and were located in Africa. Kush, often identified with Nubia and ancient Ethiopia, was situated in the modern-day regions of Sudan and southern Egypt. Nubia, derived from the Egyptian word for gold, NBW, was renowned for its wealth and powerful kingdom. Ethiopia, from the Greek Ethiopia, meaning land of burnt faces, emphasized its inhabitants' dark skin. This region had significantly influenced ancient Egyptian civilization. Here is a model of Nubian archers in the Egyptian army from the 11th dynasty, discovered in a tomb in Asyut, circa 2130-1991 BC. King Taharqa was a powerful ruler known for his military prowess, strategic acumen, and cultural patronage, which had a lasting impact on the history and legacy of ancient Nubia and Egypt. Taharqa is also mentioned in the Bible as Tirhaka, the king of Cush, during the Assyrian invasion of Judah under King Hezekiah's reign, Isaiah 37:9, 2 Kings 19:9. In fact, King Hezekiah of Judah sent messengers to King Tirhaka of Cush, seeking assistance against the Assyrian invasion led by King Sennacherib. As evident from historical depictions, Cushites had African features and were located in Africa. It's important to note that the Israelites are Semitic. To understand their appearance, let's examine this intriguing bas-relief. It shows a music group of Semites in the Assyrian army, dating back to around 645 BC. This artifact, originating from King Ashurbanipal's palace in Nineveh, Assyria, is now on display at the Louvre Museum in Paris. As we look closely, we can see the thick locks or cornrows, the beard, the high cheekbones, and the nose, all features that exhibit an African phenotype. This relief, dating back to approximately 700 to 645 BC and originating from either the palace of Ashurbanipal or the North Palace in Nineveh, depicts Semitic prisoners in Elam. The Assyrians are portrayed as rulers and conquerors, asserting dominance over these captives who are depicted with braided hair reminiscent of twist hairstyles commonly worn by African descendants. This wall panel relief depicts Assyrian soldiers chasing an Arab force across open terrain. The scene includes Assyrian chariots, archers, and infantry in pursuit. The fleeing Arabs, who are also Semitic like the Israelites and share an ancestral lineage traced back to Abraham the Hebrew, are shown mounted in pairs on camels, with some shooting arrows back at their pursuers. This relief dates to the Neo-Assyrian period, specifically between 645 and 635 BC, during the reign of Ashurbanipal. Notably, the Arabs are depicted with braided hair or locks and knotted beards. Here is a terracotta head of a Semitic individual identified as Hebrew by William Matthew Flinders Petrie. It originates from the foreign quarter of Memphis, Egypt, dating to the Greco-Roman period, and is currently housed in the Petrie Museum of Egyptian Archaeology in London. The appearance of this head clearly reflects features commonly associated with African descent. Ivory heads discovered at the Fosse Temple in Lachish, dating back to the Late Bronze Age, approximately 1550-1200 BCE, and continuing into the Iron Age, 1200-600 BCE, provide insights into the history of Lachish as an Israelite city. During this period, the Israelites settled in Lachish and throughout Canaan, marking significant stages of settlement and cultural development in the region. The phenotype of these heads, particularly the nose, distinctly shows similarities to sub-Saharan African features. This relief from the southwest palace of Tiglath-Pileser III at Nimrud depicts an Assyrian soldier brandishing a mace and escorting 4 deportees carrying sacks on their shoulders. It illustrates the Assyrian policy of deportation and resettlement, famously employed during the fall of Samaria to the Assyrians in 722-721 BCE. These deportees are identified as Israelites, captured during King Tiglath-Pileser III's conquests, including the seizure of the city of Astartu in modern-day Jordan. The captives are depicted with braided hair, beards, and fringes. This panel from the Black Obelisk of Shalmaneser III bears an inscription that reads, "The Tribute of Jehu, son of Omri." It is believed to depict King Jehu of Israel paying homage to Shalmaneser III of Assyria. This event is dated to approximately 841 BC, the 18th year of Shalmaneser III's reign, coinciding with Jehu's ascension to power. While not explicitly documented in biblical texts, this inscription aligns with the political dynamics described during Jehu's era, highlighting his interaction with the powerful Assyrian Empire. As we take a closer look, King Jehu has braids and a hook-shaped nose, features also found among people of African descent. It is ignorant and racist to assert that all black people have flat or wide noses. The black obelisk, crafted from black limestone, commemorates the achievements of King Shalmaneser III and his minister. This Neo-Assyrian monument dates back to 825 BC and features inscriptions and illustrations depicting tributes from various regions. It is divided into 5 rows of tribute bearers, each identified by captions, with 4 panels on each side. The first row from the top represents Gilzanu, northwest Iran, with horses. The second row depicts the House of Omri, ancient Israel, featuring tribute from biblical King Jehu in 841 BC. The third row shows Musri, Egypt, with an elephant, ape, and other exotic animals. The fourth row illustrates Suhi on the Euphrates in a hunting scene, and the fifth row represents Patina, southern Turkey. Austin Henry Layard excavated this artifact at Nimrud in northern Iraq. The inscriptions are in Akkadian, using cuneiform script. One striking observation about the black obelisk is the remarkable similarity in appearance among individuals depicted from various nations across the ancient Near East. Despite representing different regions and cultures, many of these figures share common features like beards, braided hair, and similar styles of clothing. Interestingly, their beards and braids resemble those commonly associated with people of African descent today. Here is Assyrian art brought to Scotland by Schomburg Henry Kerr, 9th Marquess of Lothian, showing that the ancient Assyrians were melanated with long curly hair. Here's a relief of Sargon II, who reigned as an Assyrian king from 722 to 705 BC. It originates from his palace in Khorsabad, circa 716–7113 BC. It's not uncommon for people of African descent to have various hair textures. The Achaemenid Empire, also known as the First Persian Empire, was an ancient Iranian empire established by Cyrus the Great in 550 BC. The city of Susa was one of the oldest and most important cities in the ancient Near East, located in the southwestern part of modern-day Iran. It served as a central administrative capital of the Achaemenid Empire, particularly during the reign of Darius I. Susa was renowned for its grandeur and architectural marvels, including the magnificent palace of Darius I, which featured the famous frieze of archers. Persian archers from Darius's palace in Susa, created around 510 BC, are on display at the Pergamon Museum, Vorderasiatisches Museum in Berlin. The Persians, known for their expansive rule, are also mentioned in the Bible, particularly in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah, where they are noted for allowing the Israelites to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple. The book of Esther tells the story of Queen Esther and King Xerxes, Ahasuerus. Historical depictions indicate that the Persians were people of color, deeply melanated with kinky curly hair. The Lachish reliefs are a collection of Assyrian palace carvings that vividly depict the conquest of the city of Lachish by King Sennacherib of Assyria in 701 BCE. These reliefs, carved between 700 and 681 BCE, were originally part of the decoration in the southwest palace of Sennacherib at Nineveh, located in modern-day Iraq. Discovered by Austin Henry Layard during excavations from 1845 to 1847, the reliefs measured 12 meters in width, 39.4 feet, and 5.10 meters in height, 16.7 feet. They are now housed in the British Museum in London. One notable inscription accompanying the reliefs identifies the scene as depicting Sennacherib, seated in judgment before the city of Lachish, granting permission for its destruction. The reliefs portray scenes of Assyrian soldiers besieging the city, leading prisoners away, and presenting spoils of war to Sennacherib. These scenes provide a detailed visual narrative of the Assyrian military campaign against Judah, as recorded in both Assyrian annals and biblical texts. Upon close examination of the Lachish reliefs, one cannot help but notice the meticulous depiction of the captives. They are portrayed with tightly curly hair, colloquially referred to as nappy hair, along with knotty beards, and Africoid facial features. Scholars identify these captives as ancient Israelites from Lachish, a city in the southern kingdom of Judah. This massive wall relief vividly illustrates the appearance of Jews in antiquity. As we see, ancient people of the Near East, spanning from Kush to Persia, which includes Northeast Africa, Western Asia, Mesopotamia, and the region known as the Middle East, displayed a variety of African or Negro features. The biblical Israelites, especially before the Greco-Roman captivity, lived among and even mixed with these different nations of melanated people. Common sense and evidence lead us to conclude that the Israelites of the Bible were people of color. They were melanated, they were African, they were black.